Most people have never heard of Haplogroup L. It's not as famous as R1b in Europe, or J1 in Arabia, or M in East Asia. Yet, this single maternal lineage carries one of the oldest and most important stories in human history. It connects the earliest humans who walked out of Africa to some of the deepest ancestral layers in South Asia. If you want to understand the first chapters of human migration, you cannot skip Haplogroup L. Today, we're going to trace the footsteps of this ancient lineage through deserts, river valleys, mountain passes, and coastal routes. The journey of Haplogroup L is not just a genetic record, it's a time capsule that reveals who we were before nations, before languages, before civilizations. If you strip away modern borders, you'll see a much older map, and on that map, Haplogroup L is one of the boldest strokes. So, let's begin at the very start. Mitochondrial DNA travels only from mother to child. That means every maternal haplogroup tells a story of women, generation after generation, carrying memory inside their cells. Haplogroup L is the root of all maternal lineages. Every human alive today descends from Haplogroup L at some point, because Haplogroup L branches from the original line of Homo sapiens inside Africa, more than 150,000 years ago. But the group we call Haplogroup L in this documentary is not the entire African tree. We're focusing on one of its branches that made a bold move, the groups that left Africa and carved the earliest human presence in South Asia. These were not tribes following a map, they were explorers in the purest sense, moving along coastlines in search of fresh water, better hunting routes, and new horizons. When we talk about Haplogroup L in South Asia, we're looking at a lineage that represents some of the earliest women who ever stepped out of Africa. It's as deep as human ancestry gets outside the African continent. Imagine the world around 70,000 years ago. The climate was unstable, deserts expanded and shrank, and sea levels were lower than they are today. A small number of humans left East Africa, likely walking along coasts that are now underwater. Scientists call this the Southern Dispersal Route. These people carried mitochondrial haplogroup L. They crossed the Red Sea when it was almost a giant saltwater lake. They hugged the coastlines of Yemen and Oman, gathering shellfish and following seasonal rains. They moved quietly, not in armies, but in families. And somewhere along the Arabian coast, some of these women carrying Haplogroup L continued east into what is now Iran and Pakistan. These were not waves of conquest. They were small clusters of early humans who left almost no tools behind, but their genetic footprints remain. South Asia was one of the first major destinations outside Africa for these early humans. And it is here that Haplogroup L survived longer than almost anywhere else outside Africa. When scientists began analyzing mitochondrial DNA across India and Pakistan, they found something unexpected. A small but consistent percentage of people carried variations of Haplogroup L. These lineages are ancient, older than the arrival of Indo-European populations, older than the Indus Valley civilization, and even older than the spread of agriculture. It's a living reminder that South Asia wasn't shaped only by later migrations like the Aryans, the Dravidians, or those ancient urban cultures. Long before all of that, the earliest humans who left Africa actually left their mark right here. In India, Haplogroup L is found in several regions, but it's especially concentrated in western India, parts of Pakistan, and in communities that maintained older population structures. This distribution, gives scientists an important clue. It suggests that Haplogroup L entered South Asia very early, before the major demographic shifts of later millennia. That's why, some geneticists call it a fossil lineage, not because it's extinct, but because it actually preserves the memory of a world that looked nothing like ours today. The survival of Haplogroup L is, honestly, pretty remarkable because early human populations were, quite fragile. Around 74,000 years ago, the Toba supervolcano erupted in Indonesia. Some scientists believe it caused a temporary population crash across Asia. If that's true, then Haplogroup L represents people who endured one of the harshest climate events in human history. That survival alone makes it an important lineage, but, well, there is more. As the climate warmed again and humans slowly expanded inland, Haplogroup L carriers mixed with other groups. They lived among early hunter-gatherers in the Indian subcontinent. They roamed river valleys long before cities were built. And, although later waves of migration diluted its frequency, the lineage never vanished. It endured for tens of thousands of years in South Asia, quietly bridging the earliest chapters of human evolution. One misconception is that early lineages like Haplogroup L belonged only to isolated or primitive communities. The reality is that, honestly, no one can trace exactly which ancient cultures were shaped by this lineage, but we do know that Haplogroup L women lived in regions that would later become homes to astonishing cultures. Long before the Indus Valley civilization rose with its urban planning and trade networks, Haplogroup L carriers were living in those regions. They were hunting, gathering, and raising children along the Saraswati and Indus rivers. Later, as farming arrived, these ancient lineages blended with agricultural populations from the Near East and Iran. So when we look at the deep genetic history of South Asia, Haplogroup L is not an outsider. It is an original voice in the chorus, one with a longer presence in the region than perhaps any later group. Today, Haplogroup L in South Asia is not very common. It's really a reminder that ancient lineages can be overshadowed by later migrations, Indo-European expansions, movements from Central Asia, the rise of early Iranian farmers and, multiple waves of cultural change pushed Haplogroup L into lower frequencies. But it did not vanish, and the fact that it survived at all tells us something powerful. Human history is never a straight line. Old roots can persist under layers of new growth. Even more interesting, some specific L subclades in South Asia are so old that they do not appear anywhere else. That means they formed within the region and stayed local for tens of thousands of years. These unique branches help scientists reconstruct the oldest map of humanity outside Africa. So, why should we care about a lineage so old and so rare? Well, because Haplogroup L is a reminder that our history is deeper than language, deeper than culture, and honestly, even deeper than recorded civilization. Every time scientists study early human migrations, Haplogroup L acts as a guide. It shows us where the earliest humans walked and how they managed to survive. It also demonstrates just how complex South Asian ancestry really is. People often focus on more recent migrations, but the truth is that the deepest layer of South Asian DNA belongs to some of the very earliest humans who walked the earth. This lineage connects modern people with a world that existed long before farming, pottery, or metallurgy. It connects us to a time when humans were discovering new lands for the first time. When you hear about Haplogroup L, you are hearing about women who lived more than 50,000 years ago, women who carried children through harsh landscapes, women who gathered food along ancient coasts and navigated rivers that have since changed course. Women who passed on a genetic signature that still lives today. We often look at history from the viewpoint of kings, empires, and great monuments, but mitochondrial DNA gives us a different view. It tells a story of mothers, it tells a story of endurance. Haplogroup L is one of the clearest windows into that world. We still do not know everything about Haplogroup L in South Asia. We do not know which specific sites they inhabited, or which small cultural traditions they shaped, but science continues to uncover new clues, and each discovery brings us closer to understanding a forgotten chapter of human evolution. For now, Haplogroup L stands as a reminder that the earliest humans who left Africa did not vanish. They helped build the foundation of human presence in South Asia. They shaped populations that would influence thousands of years of history. Their story is not erased, it is simply quiet. And now, through genetics, their voices speak again.